Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED. November the 19th is our date. Pete Belcastro here with you today. I'm a principal broker at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics through 7.5 years and over 350 weekly shows here. We've got a terrific audience with a goal pretty simple in mind each week, is we want you to make sure that we try to make you be a smart real estate consumer, because well, it's going to be the biggest purchase, the biggest things you deal in your life is going to be in real estate, as we know about that. Well, before we talk with Don O'Grady, I just want to share a couple of things with you. The share of home sales, what percentage of home sales across the country are primary home buyers? In other words, owner-occupied homes versus investor homes or vacation homes. What percentage do you think that is? And I was kind of surprised by it. Basically, 1 out of every 5 homes bought in the United States is an investor home. 1 out of 5, just 20%. 16% are vacation or second homes, and still 65% of all homes purchased are those purchased by buyers who are going to live in the home. What about household income? First-time home buyers have an annual household income. Think of this, if you're in this category, of about $72,000 a year in income. If you're a repeat buyer, in other words, you own a home, you're buying another one, you've generated more wealth for yourself, your average household income is almost $100,000 across the country on average. That's interesting things as we go along. And finally, one here, the median age of home buyers. This is another interesting one. If you're a first-time home buyer, the average age of a first-time home buyer is 32. I thought that's kind of high, but that's about right, maybe 32. If you're a repeat buyer, in other words, you've bought homes before, you're older, you're wiser, right? Your average age is 52, with the median of all buyers of 44 years. Those are just some of the NAR statistics that I always find them really, really interesting when you start doing things with them, because it's a fun thing to do. Anyway, Dawn O'Grady is here. She's from First American Title, and there are escrow officers, and then there are title officers. And Donna falls into the title officer world, which is looking up all sorts of information on properties, as you might very well imagine that you have to do when you're in this type of business. So anyway, Dawn is here in the house. Dawn, first of all, you've been here before with us, and it's nice to see you, and thanks for joining us again, first of all.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Glad to.
So tell me about what you've been up to. I mean, just overall, First American Title, the three title companies in the Valley, and are you all busy? I mean, tell me what's going on just overall with kind of activity in your areas.
Well, it's been very huge. A lot of great activity. I think it's actually started almost a year ago that the momentum picked up, and it's all across the board. It's residential, and it's new construction, new homes for the first time. Mm-hmm. Not in a great, influx. They're just one at a time. Not a lot of, model homes that are left open without buyers in the wings.
Yeah.
But in addition, though, the great thing that I'm seeing is the commercial properties, where whether it's new and refinanced or new buyers, investors coming in, or new developments, very much like the Alba Village, Northgate Center, and multiple new structures are going in there and all open, no doubt, by Christmas. And it's huge to see, like the Costco move and the things that are happening in the commercial. That means somebody bigger than us, who does all those big financial numbers and investigates the demographics, says Medford's going to grow, Jackson County's going to grow. We're going to put our big stores there and put money there. Mm-hmm. So I like that.
So you're seeing the commercial activity
absolutely
at a pretty good pace.
Absolutely.
Interesting there. Mm-hmm. You also mentioned in terms of housing, of getting people into homes and searching for things. I'm trying to think of I guess, are we heading in? Is it as crazy as it was before the Great Recession? I guess that's my question. Or are things more measured in their growth levels and things like that? Or
I think in most all respects, there was a log jam, and now it has just busted open.
Okay.
And, existing residential and commercial that was sitting, waiting, new developments that were sitting and waiting. In fact, I I think the surveyor had said that a couple of weeks ago, how many new applications for a new subdivision name did he have? He had 8 in 1 week, which means they haven't even gotten off the drawing board. They're just investigating and starting with an application for name. So all of this logjam, I think, is coming through, except for the new construction. I think the builders in our valley are very smart and very careful. They perhaps got a little bite in the 2008, 2009.
They didn't build anything for like 5 years here.
They're stepping carefully. They're responding to demand only.
Okay, and that's good. I mean, I think that's really good that that's happening, because we don't want things to get crazy out of hand and then, all heck breaks loose. So that's good to hear that it's more measured, and it's good to hear also that the commercial part of this, the commercial activity, is pretty robust, because that's where jobs are created. That's where people need to come. That's where you invest money in your community. Well, today's show, by the way, is presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. And one of the things that we've been doing with RVAR is bring you information that is presented to realtors during continuing education classes that everybody has to take 30 hours every 2 years worth. And Donna is one of the instructors for RVAR, a credit class. And what are you teaching the thing? I mean, before we go, you do a lot of stuff with that.
Well, today we're talking more about, power to act and who can sign, but it's easements are a real hot topic. Tell me more about access and roadways and utilities and covenants and restrictions on your property are a big class topic. And so it goes all across the board. And I've been in the business 39 years, started under my dad, who is a county surveyor. So I've learned legal descriptions and easements and the lingo, and then evolved it to title companies 39 years ago. So that gave me like the ground floor up, any variety of title topics. You could pretty much pick out of the air, and I've already got a class ready for you.
Well, see, that's really good. Now, you talk about easements. That is always a top topic when you're buying or selling, because you'll get a title report, and it'll say some easement that you don't even know is there, right? And people just kind of go, oh, my goodness, what is it? But we see a lot of easements on properties, right?
Right. I got a call today, and the gentleman said, well, I know you've looked at my title. I know I've got a title policy, and I have an easement for the road, but I'm going to improve it and do some graveling. And is my neighbor going to help pay? Because we both share it. And you have to look carefully and ask the right questions before you know the answer. So you're right. You see it, and then you sign and you buy, and you're done. And then you think, oh, who's paying for that road? Yeah.
There's lots of there's lots of that out there, isn't there? More than you think.
Yeah.
Well, what about the power to act? When I first saw this, I said, well, that's really an interesting kind of thing, but you don't really think about until you get into a transaction of who signs what, who can sign what, especially if someone is ill or incapacitated, or you're doing it for somebody else or a family member. I started thinking, geez, there's all sorts of problems I can see come up with this. So this is a topic that you're teaching right now, aren't you, to agents that need to be aware of these kind of things?
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Tell us about it. What is it that we need to know?
Well, sometimes we start with a very simplest form, and we talked about that, the individual who's in title. And it might be 2 or 3 individuals who are in title. But then we have to decide, well, are they all of age? Are they all 18 and older? No minors are in title together? Are they all competent? Do I search the court records, which on every title report we do? I'll search your name and the joint owner name to see if there's any probates or divorces or any other action that affects your ability to sign and sell and convey title clear to your new buyer.
Because our listeners know that's one of the things we talk about is you've got to be able to, the buyer has to be able to obtain clear title to the property, or the deal is going to fall through. So have you seen with sellers, I guess, is it smart, Donna, for them to, if there's questions, to go see who's on the deed or get yourself, I guess, straightened out if you have any issues that you see that might be out there? Or even if you don't, I suppose it would be important to know this.
Yeah. Title insurance and record title, that's those documents that do record at the courthouse that we can retrieve, is how our industry is driven. So you might have someone in title, a senior in title, who's actually died, but the last deed of record is in Sally Smith's name. So, as you said, that deed is going to guide you. If you've got a deed and the last deed says Sally, how do you transfer that? You can't just say, well, I'm in the will and it's me because she put me in her will and now I can sign everything.
That's not good enough.
That's not good enough.
What do you do in that situation? What do you do?
So it'll raise up. We'll look to see if Sally has died, and then we'll find death certificate, and we'll look to see if there's been a probate filed, and if not, there's also a second level, a smaller, simpler step called small estate. They could have filed that. And it means if you've got a home or real property of value of $200,000 or less, you don't have to go the full-blown probate. You can opt for the short and simple form of small estate.
The limit you said is 200,000.
Yes.
That you don't have to. If your estate is under 200,000, then you don't have to go through any kind of probate.
You can't. You don't have to. The full probate's not necessary.
God, that's not a very high ceiling. 200,000 of an estate. I mean, a house. If you own a house, it's going to be generally more than that, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
in general, in general, whether you,
it could be.
But that's kind of interesting. Okay, right, that's good. What about you talk about incapacitated persons I know who are maybe moving in transition somewhere and they can't I don't know, do it for themselves, or they have power of attorney. Does that work, or tell me how that works? Because I know a lot of our listeners, as we get older, we have a power of attorney, somebody who's going to do that for us, whether sometimes it's an attorney, right?
Yes.
Or it could be a family member or a friend. How does that go with transactions of real estate then?
Very important. Those power of attorneys, once they're created, the great news in Oregon is they're called durable. So if you entered into a power of attorney today and had it legitimately created and you were of sound mind, then if a year from now or 2 years from now you kind of struggled and you're not quite as clear and you can't make all the decisions anymore, the Oregon law says, well, then it's durable. That power will supersede or go on beyond your incapacity and carry you if you're in a coma or if you're unable. That power of attorney still is effective. So anyone assigned can actually use it. Has to be notarized.
It's really important to have a power of attorney as you get older. Is that what you see?
Absolutely.
If you don't have a power of attorney on someone and say you become incapacitated and you own property, then what happens if you're incapacitated and you have nobody to take care of that for you?
Then that next option, the next step is to actually file in the circuit court you want you become a protected person. And a guardian is sometimes appointed, but beware, that's only for medical and health issues and only for maybe banking and shopping issues. But you need a personal representative. You need to have an appointment so that it's actually a conservator that's appointed. Then that conservator becomes the person who signs for you.
But you really avoid all of that by taking a proactive approach while you still can, is to name somebody or have a power of attorney or somebody to do that for you before you go to the courts to do it. You don't want that to happen.
Right.
I mean, that's just to be the worst thing.
A good thing, if it does go to the court and a conservator is appointed, they cannot sell your home. They can sell other properties, but they cannot sell your home without a court order. So there's a little protection there. They've learned not to, swipe the home away from the senior just because they went into surgery and had a coma for 1 month.
Right, or living someplace else while they're away. That's interesting too. A lot of people. We're talking, by the way, with Donna O'Grady from First American Title here on the Real Estate Show today about who can sign for things. I mean, for titles as we try to transaction of properties here. What about estates? I see lots and lots of estate ownership on properties, whether sometimes they're called loving estate, a loving trust, or just a family estate. How does that work? Is that important to have that kind of thing too, or when is it appropriate, Donna, to have those?
when is it appropriate?
Yeah, I don't even know if I can answer that myself. I don't know.
Well, no, actually, stepping back, the trust agreement is very, very much a common vehicle. You'll see that often in your deeds, creating a family trust, a loving trust, or maybe just a business trust of sorts. But that trust is created in a written form, and a trustee has to be empowered to act. So any of your deeds, you're going to see Pete as trustee of the family trust.
Right.
So you'll always see the trustee named.
Now, the trustee we got a break coming here. Hold that thought there, Donna, because trusts are really important for you. And I think we need to have a better understanding of when it's appropriate to have them or use them.
Yes.
Because I see them all the time now on transactions. Anyway, we're with Don O'Grady from First American Title on the Real Estate Show here on KMED. We got a break coming up. Don't you dare go away, because we're coming back with a whole lot more information. Don't forget, you can check out all of our past shows at realestateshowOregon.com, and we're back after this. The Real Estate Show rolls on KMED. November the 19th is our date. Pete Belcastro, one of the real estate guys with you here today. Joe's off this week and be back with us next week. Don't forget, you can check out any of our past shows at realestateshowOregon.com, the home of our website there. Hope you do that as well. Today, here on the Real Estate Show, Don O'Grady from First American Title has dropped by to talk about, title things, how you obtain title, who signs. You can't do a transaction really unless Donna gives a go-ahead, because she's like the title officer who makes that final decision here, as we found out. We've been talking before the break there, Dawn. We were talking about estates, loving trusts, and how many more. I've certainly seen that so many homeowners are now look like they're turning to trusts for this, and you're saying you're seeing that too. Which again, we think that's a good thing. Yet that it's a smart thing for a seller to do or a homeowner to do.
Right. And it's always at the guidance of a real estate attorney.
Right.
And yet, once you've created a trust agreement, it is a clear path for us to follow. Title receives a copy of the trust, or, we actually don't have to have all 500 pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Often,
yeah.
Or at least 50. But we often just take a one-page trust certificate, and it says, hey, I am the trustee, and I am empowered, and this is the check system. And we're able to follow that trust certificate and allow a signer on behalf of the trust property. So that gives us a real clear path. And like I say, attorneys might create it, but once it's in place, you and I can use that freely.
We can just use it as we go along. What happens? I had a situation where a trust was created many years ago, and some of the page over time, pages got missed, destroyed out or something like that. And in one case, something wasn't notarized along this trust, and you can't, so you look at that thing and say, well, we got a problem here. We got to turn to you. And how does something like that get resolved? I suppose not only for a trust or any property, when something's not quite there. What do you have to do how do you get permission to get clear title on that kind of a situation?
We step carefully because what we're actually doing is stepping backwards. Our risk in reviewing any of the trust or any title ownership is who would object. Who are the other players out there that might rise up and challenge this?
Okay.
So as we look at that partial trust, which parts and pieces missing, we're going to start inquiring about, okay, who are the principals? Who are their heirs? What does their will look like? Bring that in also.
Okay.
And once we identify what we call the beneficiaries of the trust, it's becoming more and more common that we might ask the beneficiaries to approve. Now, this might be your 3 children, and mom thought she's the only successor trustee. But if it's all parts and pieces, we might be asking the beneficiaries, 3 children, to join or approve or consent.
Consent to what it is, because they would be objectionable people at some point.
They would be the losers if she misstepped.
I see.
And didn't get that trust and the asset quite right.
Trusts are interesting things, vehicles. They're but I like them because it's, as you say, it spells out. It makes it easy.
Yes.
Anything
Yes.
you do in the future. Yeah.
Yes. A careful thing, Pete, is beware of those power of attorneys.
Uh-huh.
We were talking about, that's such a great idea to do those ahead, but a trustee acting on behalf of a trust agreement can't assign and pass over a power of attorney to do their job
Okay.
unless the trust agreement actually has a clear paragraph and it actually says you can appoint an agent, someone can act on your behalf. So we're reading those then to be sure if you're traveling and you just went to a wonderful sunny beach somewhere, somebody could sign on your behalf on a trust.
Okay.
So talk to your title officer ahead of time.
Well, it's really important that I hope our listeners are getting that, because it's really important, especially as we age, that we take care of those things. And creating the trust is probably a smart thing to do if you have an estate. That's worth something. I mean, I don't know what something is, but that makes some sense. Now, another way, Donna, that people have sometimes difficulty in obtaining title. I had my nephew call me from California recently, and he said he wanted to buy a piece of property, and they were going to auction it off on the courthouse steps down in Ukiah, I think it was. He says, "What do you think?" And I'm going, "Oh my goodness!" I remember Shelley Culberson sitting where you are years ago saying, "Oh, don't you ever buy anything off of a courthouse steps unless you do blah 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 and this and this." So I'm telling my nephew kind of these same things. What is it about that why is that so important? Because a lot of people still want to go to the steps and maybe a good deal on a property that's foreclosed that the sheriff is selling. But there's risk involved there, isn't there?
Absolutely is. In every foreclosure, they can only name and serve junior liens behind them. That tells you, well, one of the number one risk then is what's ahead of them. No, naturally it's things like taxes and irrigation and city liens, but are you really the first loan that's being foreclosed, or are you looking at a second loan? And once you buy that property on the steps, you find out, oh, now I own a first bank and I owe $8,000 of taxes. And I know one we had come in, and it was on the day of sale, and they were checking quickly to see what those liens were. And the foreclosure had missed, the attorney and the whole process had missed 2 very large federal tax liens. And if they were served, because they were junior, they would be wiped out. But that's the second thing you're watching for. Were they served properly so that you could wipe out things behind you?
Ooh.
And again, your title company is going to be the one to take a look at that.
So your advice, if someone is ever into that position of I want to buy a place off from the sheriff's sale, the foreclosure sale, they should come in and really see you first. I mean, shouldn't they do that first?
Yes. See the title officers, see if you can get a title report of all the monetary liens at least.
Because there's going to be a bunch of liens on a foreclosed property, correct?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and some you may not even know. I mean, you would. And when you buy say you do that and you buy the property, all those liens, now you own it, come with it, right? They come with the property. So if you bought a place for, say, $100,000 thinking you made a really good deal, and you've got $100,000 worth of liens of taxes and
they're all yours.
Whatever, you're still responsible for those when you bought the house.
Yes.
See, that just makes so much sense. You can't do that. You have to get the information from the title company that you can get clear title to that property.
Yes.
Right?
And I know a classmate called last week and said, gosh, I almost bid on my sister's house. She's passed on and the home foreclosed. But I wasn't quite sure if it was absolutely clear. And when I asked the sheriff deputy on the courthouse steps, wasn't this the first lien? Wouldn't I be getting the property free and clear? He refused to answer, which
really?
is absolutely correct.
Right, I was going to say that's the right answer because he wouldn't know.
He doesn't know.
Wouldn't know.
And so he was very protective and very careful, and she searched it, and it had been the only one on there. And a good example, too, one that had already foreclosed, they did not serve a second lien.
Okay.
They reversed the whole thing. They came back a week later, and the bank said, I rescind that sale. You just put your money up, and you're not going to get it back for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I rescind it because I have to restart the foreclosure and properly serve the guy I missed.
Oh, It's the danger if you go out to roll the dice that way. And if you don't do your homework, you very well can get burned. And I know people who've gotten burned on those things, and you just shake your head and say, "Geez, I wish you
could have, might have,
could have done something differently on that particular thing." We're with Donna O'Grady, by the way, First American Title here on the Real Estate Show. And Donna's been doing this all your life. I mean, you're really good at looking up this. There's nothing can get by Donna. I'm telling you that.
Right.
But I do have a question. Think about it during the break here. What has title done in terms of recreational marijuana and the growing and the things that we're seeing right now in our counties, Jackson and Josephine? Is there stuff going on there title wise that we need to know about? Think about that one, Donna. She's shaking her head yes, so I'm assuming there is. So you want to stay tuned to hear what her answer is, because like everything with recreational marijuana, it's new, it's different, and it's changing the way we do things, that's for sure. The Real Estate Show continues here on KMED. We've got a break coming up. We're coming right back with more, right after this. Real Estate Show rolls on KMED. November the 19th is our day. Want to wish you all a terrific Thanksgiving holiday next weekend. We'll be back with you, of course, on Saturday. And we'll be talking about the rental market in Southern Oregon. See what's going on with that. As you know, the last time we did that, the rental vacancy rate was still less than 2%. And I just heard horror story after horror stories of landlords raising their rental prices. I had a friend who rented $1,200 a month rent on a house in Medford. Got a 90-day notice. That's the new rule right now. Guess what the new price is? $1,550. That's a huge increase in rentals. And I'm just saying, we've seen protesters, a little down in Ashland over some of this, and rentals and rates increases. Anyway, we'll hear about that next week. There's just a lot going on when you're in this kind of a market. This is what happens, and I think we're seeing it play out right now. Donna O'Grady is in the house today from First American Title. She's a title officer at First American, and been doing that for many, many years. We're talking about how you obtain title on properties, and of course, Donna teaches for the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors and teaches this information to realtors as part of continuing education classes. So far, man, we've learned a lot of things today from you, Donna. This stuff. Just go back to the courthouse step again. It's really so important to get to you, someone like you first, because boy, don't buy it unless you've checked it out, or you're going to get burned. And a lot of people have gotten burned on this.
That's it. Exactly. Just know what that liens look like and what position you're buying into and what's ahead of you.
Okay. Then we were talking about marijuana. I'm just curious as to what that's happening with title. I mean, I don't have no idea, but we know it's all happening out there. There's a lot of activity regarding recreational marijuana and real estate and buying and this kind of thing. How do you play? How does title play into this?
I'm going to hold the line. It's the same as we talked about, a few months back. Title companies cannot knowingly close a marijuana farm, even a medical marijuana farm.
Knowingly close. So that means that if I'm buying a place and I'm going to put a grow in or do something, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut when it comes to you, right? I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing.
And we don't ask what the use of your property is. We don't ask, is this a farm? Or are you going to have daycare center? Are you going to have dogs? That's not part of what title does.
Why is that? I mean, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Well, it's a federal law. Because it is driven by that federal violation, then we defer. And I don't believe any local title companies will knowingly close a marijuana farm.
Knowingly close. Okay.
So that's a real key thing. And and in addition, we will not take all cash. And that somehow seems to kind of go hand in hand. When they walked in and they're ready to buy and nothing was said, but they want to give you, $700,000 of cash in small bills.
all hundreds.
we don't take even a dollar.
It's on a pallet outside the front door if you want it, but you can't take that.
We actually can't in any transaction. If you were short in your closing when you bought your house and you needed $10 more, we can't take a dollar bill. So it's just carries straight across the board.
Something's got to be done with that. They just can't continue this partial cash world for some and others not. It's just anyway.
No cash here.
Creates a lot of problems.
The thought that came to mind though is as I think about that federal regulation, how many of those properties out there that might be prime for growing are serviced by a BLM road? Their access might be a Forest Service road or a BLM road. And that access could be withdrawn and denied.
If it was
so here they've got that huge operation already full force and forgot that the feds have control. And water is starting to become that same issue.
That's the number one issue, I think. Next year is going to be that.
Well, whether it might be a local irrigation district who says, I have to cut you off because we're funded. We're
funded by the Fed. They haven't done that yet in terms of water, because we're going in Oregon, we're going on EFU land, which with water, with irrigation water. But they could do that, is what you're saying.
The irrigation districts may rise up to say, we can't risk it. They know that they will be sued by the landowner, but they can't risk losing their federal grants.
Yeah. Boy, it really is. It's such an interesting dynamic going on, I suppose. Before we let you out of here, the end of the year is when people can, appeal their property taxes if they want to do that, or apply for property tax exemptions. If you're 62 and over, those kind of things. Do you see that a lot in title, that people are taking advantage of some of those programs, Donna, or are those kind of not as popular maybe as they used to be? I don't see too many of them. I always ask people if they've done that. Older people, if you've done that. Very few have.
Yeah, it's a more limited program now. It used to be flourishing, where very often you'd see senior deferrals, and it shows $0 due on the Jackson County tax roll. But then you connect with the state, you've got $8,000 due for the last 3 years. So it just defers at a smaller interest rate, and it has to be paid upon selling or death. So the state program forces it to be paid back.
And the state is the number one in line, aren't they, in the lien process? So they're going to get their money. Well, the reason I asked, and I had a client who had a homestead exemption for a number of years, and the tax was now like $50-some thousand.
Oh, true.
And I said, well, you better tell your kids, that you've done this, because they didn't know.
They got this free and clear house.
You're going to sell the house, and all of a sudden you got a $50,000 tax bill. You're going to go, oh, what did they do? Kind of thing like that. It was always about being ready and being, well, we call it being market ready, being ready with whatever you're doing, because you don't want to get burned, because someone will know the rules, or someone's going to come along and knock what you're thinking off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not very good. And the final thing today is you talked about, I just want to ask you about historic homes and historic structures. Can I go back and get the history of these places and title? I'm talking about homes in the 1890s, 1900s. Where would I find that title? Do you have that title or that history of these homes that might be out there?
Yes, we do. We have a chain of title report that you could request, and it's $100 for the first hour, and then $75 for every hour it takes to dig as far back as we can pull. They're often searched by names. Today's searching is you pop up a tax lot on a computer, and it just kicks out all the documents. But when you get behind, 1980 anyway.
80, okay.
It's
almost all on paper.
It's all on paper.
And you have to go back and search for that.
And some of the county records help. But anyway, yes, we can track a chain of title.
Yeah. Tracking the chain of title. That's what you do. You cannot buy or sell unless Donna clears you. I mean, Donna's position clears it. For the title company to say yes, right? I mean, that's what you do. Yeah.
We review those clearly.
And I know you're really busy, and we're out of time, so I guess that's it. But once again, we learned a lot of good things, Donna, and wish you well, and thank you for being here, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, today's show presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. Thanks to Donna O'Grady, First American Title. Lots of good information on this show as well. Hope you'll check us out again, the show at realestateshowOregon.com. Have a great week, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you next Saturday here on KMED. God bless you all.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on KMED Radio, presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, along with John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon and Bank 34 Mortgage. For guest contact information, download our free app, or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshowOregon.com. This show is produced by Table Rock Productions. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED. And thank you for making The Real Estate Show part of your weekend.